Hello everyone. Today we're going to be looking at miter saw safety. Very short and straightforward presentation, but a lot of important things to remember when using this piece of equipment. So let's get started. So just a couple things on looking at the miter saw parts. So the blade is actually located underneath this guard. The miter saw that we have in our wood shop at school is identical to this one. It does have a 9-inch blade on it, and it's located underneath this guard cover. The power switch is located within this handle, so this saw will move up and down when you pull the handle down, and that's how you actually cut through your piece. I'm going to be showing you guys a video that'll show you exactly how to use this for those of you that are new to the course. The fourth, if you're cutting a larger piece of material that you would maybe need to slide it back. And then things that I'm going to mention as I go over our safety rules are the table, which is where you lay your piece of material, and this back fence. That's also very important. You can cut angles on this miter saw, and that's why there's this miter lock handle. Depending on what angle you want to cut, maybe a 45 or a 35, you always want to make sure that you have your table locked into place. Let's go through some of the rules. So allow the blade to reach full operating speed before starting a cut. Just like with the bandsaw, it may take a second or two for that motor to reach its full speed. So you always want to let the saw blade be at its maximum speed before you start cutting into your material. Never hold your piece of material in a manner that causes your arms to cross. So typically, if you're right-handed, you'd want to hold onto your material with your left hand, and you'd want to operate the saw with your right hand. Okay. The majority of all cuts made on the miter saw are with the material in your left hand on the left side of the saw, while the right hand operates the machine. So that's what I just said. Always remove scraps and other foreign items from the machine before operating the saw. So just like with our scroll saws and band saws, you always want to make sure that the machine is free of all scrap pieces or any other items before you lay your material on there. Be sure your material is held tightly against the fence when making the cut. Let's go back a couple slides. You always want to lay your material tight against this back fence before you start cutting. What can happen is if you don't have your material, sometimes some people might have their fingers back behind there and you could pinch your fingers, the piece might twist. So it's just not a good thing. You always want to make sure you have your piece of material tight against this back fence. The next thing, never have the saw blade in contact with your material while starting the saw. So when you lay your material onto that table, the back fence, you never want to have the saw blade in contact with your piece. What's going to happen is if you start your saw, it's going to want to kick your piece back, and it could also cause like splitting or cracking of your material. Be sure the saw has reached full speed before starting the cut. So again, we mentioned that in the last slide. Before you start actually cutting your piece of material, make sure that the saw is at its full speed. So here is, I'm sorry. So here is the procedure for operating the miter saw, and I am going to show you guys a video. First thing says lay out material to be cut with a tape measure and a square. Okay, so you'll lay your tape measure on there, you'll mark to wherever you want to cut, and then you use your square to draw a nice perpendicular line. Then you're going to line up your material against the back fence with the blade and make sure that the blade is against the line, not on it. What happens when you cut with the miter saw is you actually lose an 1/8 inch of material every time you cut. That's called kerf. So kerf is the amount of material you lose to like sawdust. Okay. Hold material tightly against the back fence. Slide the saw back towards you. Start the saw. Just make sure that the blade is not touching your wood when you're starting it. Wait till it reaches full speed, and then you'll push right through your material. Again, the video is going to kind of put that into a better perspective for those of you that have never operated the miter saw. So the test is very straightforward. There's only 5 questions. You need to score a 5 out of 5, which is 100%, in order to pass it. Okay? Please let me know if you have any questions. And that is it for the miter saw safety.